if you were wrong? Like, how would you, for you, the globe model is a deception, and that your whole worldview was based upon something that's not true?
I think about it occasionally, but it's just think there's overwhelming evidence to the contrary of a flat, non-rotating surface. But hey, I'm always trying to look at the other side's opinions and questions, and see if we can come up with answers and test to validate.
If it turns out to be the case that for you, that you do come to the conclusion that it indeed wasn't the globe, would you look back on your whole time how would you psychoanalyze yourself that you were so strong defending the globe for all these years? Like, if you were wrong, like, how would you remedy that, or how would you kind of reconcile that?
I think like all other scientists maybe would reconcile. They say, you know what, I'm at peace with it. I had overwhelming amount of evidence to support my beliefs or my conclusions, and so any human would have been in my situation would draw the same conclusions. I think so. I'm okay. I'm glad I know the truth. Everything was wrong. I was programmed. It was all simulation. It was all lies. Now I know better, and I'll be the wiser for the better.
All right.
So what was it that took? What was it that it took to realize that the planes can't land on a spinning ball if they're treating you as stationary? So it finally broke you.
Oh my God, that's gonna be a new tombstone. The spinning an airplane pointed southwest with this spinning globe beneath it.
He realizes now that he's got to get to work and train more air particles to get in better shape to escape the non-container that's being propagated through a field that's actually rotating and making the particles of gas not act like gas at all, just go in a certain direction.
Exactly.
Be careful getting up. I mean, because A to B, 1,000 miles an hour on the equator is still 1,000 miles an hour from A to B. I don't give a shit how large the object you're on is. You're at A, and in 1 hour, you're at B, 1,000 miles away. Wow. And you can't feel it.
Oh, not only that, you can just treat it like it's not even moving at all. Land planes on it. Don't even worry about it spinning. Just fly all over the place and just treat it just like it's stationary, even though it's supposed to be moving. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Dude, Dave, because we were talking all about the gyroscope and all that, and it's like they're even claiming that the gyroscope is picking up the Earth's rotation, but you don't have to adjust for it when you fly an airplane over it. That would be like, oh yeah, you're on this escalator right here, or you're on one of these like walking like moveways here. But yeah, you just can treat it like it's normal. And you know what happens to those people? They step on it and they get the legs pulled out from under them, and they fall right away. I mean, you can't just walk onto one of those. You have to adjust for it.
And see, I believe in relativity now, because relativity, you get on a treadmill going 1 mile an hour and have someone unplug it without you knowing, you're going to fall on your face. But you can't feel motion, can't detect it. There's change in the motion that we're talking about. They used to teach it that there wasn't any change. It's constant speed, so you wouldn't feel it. But even that doesn't make sense, because A to B, you're going 1,000 miles an hour.
Yeah, Zanick, you have to realize that, like, kinematically, right? It can just be like set up this kinematic rule that we're just gonna like assume that everything's moving with the rotation of the Earth, and we're gonna use an equation to just subtract that from every other movement that it does, and it can just act like it's not moving, even though it's automatically moving, perfect lockstep with the Earth, without any kind of dynamics applied whatsoever. No actual masses in relation to each other need to be thought about. That's ridiculous. It would be a completely different situation if the guy was flying over a spinning ball as opposed to a stationary Earth. It's basic common sense. A mathematical rule that just makes it fixed doesn't, I mean, you're hilarious to listen to trying to justify it and explain it and then act like people don't know what they're talking about. But it's over, man. You have no answers for those things. It's funny you always bring it up too, because almost like there's no answer, and you kind of like perversely entertained by it.
No answer to what? I've given the answers to all these questions, I believe.
They don't have any answers. What do you mean? What's the mechanism that keeps it in perfect sync with the Earth, and so the pilot can treat it as station? How is that possible?
Who's keeping what perfect sync with anything? I mean, I never said there's everything in perfect
Well,
sync.
it would have to be. It'd have to be like somehow like just negated. Like the rotation of the Earth has to be negated so that the pilot doesn't have to worry about it, right? How is it negated?
Because you control point to point. We've already gone over this for hours and hours, maybe days.
That's not negating it. That's paying attention to it.
Yeah, that's basically flying from point to point, and the
Doesn't work,
rotation that
man.
runs into, which would, in form of Coriolis effect, it would use a Coriolis force equal to the Coriolis force to counteract it. And so if that means one way going north or south to a certain point is easier and more efficient than going the opposite direction, then that would be actual proof too. We actually have Yodvos effect, where we know planes get lighter flying eastward due to this effect, and consume more fuel going westward, because it's the equivalent of having
What? Wait,
0.3% more fuel on board. And
wait,
that's a measurable.
y'all always bring up Coriolis, Zanick, but you're telling me over Lake Pontchartrain, if you go north to south, the runway that's on the south shore during the duration of the flight would move. So you'd have to adjust for where that runway is going to be.
Why would the runway move?
Well, you told me the building moves. When you shoot a ballistic over it, the building moves.
Yeah, right.
So the runway, if the building was a runway and the ballistic thing was an airplane taking off and going in that direction towards that runway is not there when it gets there. It has to adjust. It has to move. And to you told me however many hundreds of feet it would move in a certain direction.
Yeah, 100 and something feet. So, like, if you have two airplanes on a runway and you're shooting 26 miles away, you aim for the Cessna, but there's a Lear 45 behind it. You hit the Lear 45 because it moved. The Earth moved out of its.
Yeah, but a pilot would be trained to deal with that. The pilot would be made aware that the Earth is moving. And
yeah, if you're controlling this projectile and you have wings and a rudder, you start taking out. You get launched out of the gun, but now you're able to control itself. You start heading toward that Cessna. You start seeing that you need to correct because you're starting to go toward the Lear, the 45. So you turn the rudder to go back to the Cessna. And that small little correction over 26 miles.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm going towards the runway. Point B.
Well, there's two planes on the runway. One is
they're
in line. They're ready to get taken off. They're ready to take off.
I don't know why you're confusing it. I'm doing one plane. I'm taking off from a runway that's the same direction that the other runway is at. I take off from A and I'm going to B. By the time I get there, if I don't correct, I'm not going to hit runway B. Unless I correct for it, is going to be. I like your analogy better.
I like your analogy better. So yeah, you'll see that runway now is shifting to the right by a little bit, and so you give a little bit of rudder to correct for this, whatever you're seeing happening. Could have been the crosswind, could have been Coriolis. We don't really know. We don't really care. So all we do is
give a pilot never does.
I'm not talking about
all we do is correct so that make sure we line up with that runway that we took off. It was directly in line when we took off, but now because we've flown and it hit a little bit of a Coriolis effect, about 100 feet, we gave a little bit of directional change along its path that was almost unconsciously done because it's
that is not Coriolis. That is the actual physical runway. That is the actual physical runway moving off. And if that's on a very short 24 mile flight, I'm talking about let's move it out even further where runway B is ahead of you in a straight path and you're on a 10-hour flight. And that runway is going to be miles to your right. You would have to aim your airplane right after you take off, judging by the amount of time you're going to be in the flight, not because of Coriolis, because the actual runway itself is moving to the right, miles and miles.
Yep, you'd have to aim to that where that spot you'll be aiming, even though you're flying a direct straight line to the.
Well, but Zanick, the pilots would be trained to do that. Why aren't the pilots trained to do that?
You're clipping me, dude. Clipping me. So
you're acting like it's like normal flight instructions to do this, but no pilot's trained to do what you're talking about.
You don't need to be.
Okay, then that's ridiculous.
That's not ridiculous. That's exactly how it is.
Why? Because you
No.
almost unconsciously do it. You just
You
rely on
almost-
the pilots almost unconsciously making these corrections.
Right.
No, this
because
is
all we're
this is
doing is
what
making sure
would
we
have to
keep
happen.
on regard. Here's what the pilot does. No matter this, if I'm a pilot instructor and I'm looking at my student and I'm saying we're going to go to this runway, we can't see it. It's 100 miles away. All I want you to do is make sure you keep this plane. I don't care how you do it, what you do to do it. I need you to stay on this path. And here's the markers along the way. I want to see fly over the Kmart across the bay. You want to hit the ball field that's with the light that has
That's
the
not
lights
how you
on.
fly.
And I want you to
Fly
fly
by
this
heading.
line along the way and do not do anything but make sure you stay on course. And that's what he would do, regardless if the ground is moving underneath
Do you
you.
end it? Do you end that
crosswind.
speech with, but because if you don't, the Earth is moving and you probably crash land because you're not going to be in sync. So just to let you know, it's totally different than the simulator had you implied that you might be flying over a stationary Earth, just like the simulator. No, this is going to be totally different. But I trust that almost unconsciously you're going to be able to make these corrections without even thinking about it. But if you don't, you're in trouble.
Well, in actuality, this is what a pilot would have to do flying north to south. He would have to say, okay, I'm going to take off and my airport is at 230 degrees. But by the time I'm going to be in the air 5 hours, and by the time I get to there, that airport is going to be here, right? Which is going to be a heading of 190 degrees. So I need to take off and go at a heading of 190 degrees to adjust for where the airport is going to be by the time I get there. He's not going to fly 230 degrees towards the airport. He's going to fly at 190 degrees towards the airport where it's going to be by the time his flight is over. That's what
And
a
even
pilot
if he
would
were
have.
to do that, he'd have to continue accelerating with the Earth sideways as he's landing on the runway to stop, which is impossible.
Yeah, even if the air is moving with the.
Oh boy, no! You make up that tangential velocity by making those small corrections along the way, and then when you got to the airport, there would be no way to understand or know the difference that you came from to the difference that you actually ended up at.
What? How? You have to accelerate an extra amount.
You
You're
did.
going towards the
You applied
equator.
a little bit of pressure to
How?
stay on that path. By staying on the path, the straight line path, you've accelerated along that path at a very, very moderately
Not if
slow
it's
rate.
going west southwest. If it goes west southwest, there's no way to correct eastward. You
Same
would be
thing.
moving. You would be
A
moving
slight left turn.
by your own reasoning. You would be going actually slower towards the east than you started off with because you lose
That's
your
right.
conservative momentum, and so you can't make up the difference.
That's right. You got to gain eastern momentum, so you got to make a slow left turn. You slowly turn east the entire way.
Left turn when you're headed west southwest. A left turn
Yes,
is south. It's not going to make you
you're
have
gonna
more
you're gonna point
direct
yourself to
eastward tangential
Japan.
velocity. That does not
You're
make you
leaving
gain
Alaska. You're
directly
leaving
backwards
Japan.
eastward tangential velocity. It wouldn't
You're
do that.
leaving for Japan. You point toward Japan, and you continue to point to Japan the entire path. But lo and behold, what's happening? Japan is actually moving which way? Eastward, right? At a higher rate than you are.
Ridiculous.
So you have to
You
actually
can't
start
get
turning.
eastward.
You got to slowly keep Japan and make a slow left turn as you're traveling south.
Yeah, but how would that make you go backwards eastward in the opposite direction faster?
Because you're making a left-hand turn
What's
slowly, but you
left?
are making the entire way
What's left?
east.
No, left isn't east when you're headed west southwest.
No, yes, west,
No, it's not.
southwest. We're going
West
eastward. An
southwest. You're
eastward.
playing it west southwest. Looking
We're
at
going
just
west
imagine it
southwest.
headed west
We're making
southwest.
an eastward
West
turn,
does not point to the east
dude.
directly.
Come on, man.
What do you mean, dude? Come on, man.
Exactly what that means, dude.
Yeah,
Stop.
west
We're,
southwest. If you go left, it's not going to be pointing you eastward directly.
yes, that'll be more eastward
Well,
than
it
it
won't.
was going westward. Yes.
Just because it's more eastward doesn't mean directly eastward. It would have to be
It doesn't
directly
matter.
eastward.
That's a matter of magnitude.
It would matter.
It
Would matter.
it doesn't matter. You're still
You
going
have
to
to
be
be
going
in. You have
more
to be in
westward.
perfect sync. You have to be in perfect sync with the direct eastward tangential velocity, not just towards that direction, kind of, when you've already lost momentum in that direction from going west. So you can't say he's going to be going. He's going to not only lose the original conserved momentum plus double it somehow just by aiming towards the south, which isn't east.
I got a better problem for you. Why don't you say this? Say we're going to go eastward. We're going east. I'm sorry. We're going westward. We're going west southwest. We're going west-southwest, but we're only going to a spot that's got 100 miles an hour different tangential velocity. But
Well, that would be helpful,
we're going
wouldn't it?
west though. So and our plane only goes 100 miles an hour. So what do we make a U-turn when we get down to that airport and then gain that momentum? How do you gain the momentum?
You're
Yeah,
pointing
so
out
this might
another
be
way,
a
though.
better. This might be a better, more mind-boggling, because these are good mind benders. I like them. They're a good one.
You know why they're mind benders? Because it makes your paradigm impossible, bro.
No, you can simulate it. You can actually put it. You know what you can
No, you can't. You
do
can't
is you
just
put it
write a
inside of a flight
kinematic
simulator and see
law.
what you need to do.
You can't just say there's a kinematic law that it's going to automatically just go ahead and be in sync with the Earth. We're just
Yeah,
going to
there is.
write that into the program. No, you can't do that. It has to have a mechanism. It
The
has to
kinematics
have
are
the
very
pilot has
clear.
to be aware of it. Pilot has to be
No.
aware of it. The plane has to be able to go backwards faster than forwards without the pilot knowing. You can't have any kind of like almost instinctively type jargon that goes into this. It can't be almost instinctively.
Okay, settle down. Okay,
You
cowboy,
can't.
settle.
It's a pilot
Cowboy,
with a life.
cowboy, settle
He's got his
down.
own life in his hands.
Dave, come on.
The passenger's life are in his hands. It doesn't make any sense to him.
Okay, listen. I'm gonna put you on a map in the middle of my living room, and I'm gonna give you a little toy plane, and it's on a turntable, and I'm gonna have you go, and you can't touch the map. You can just kind of float it above the map, and I'm gonna have you go from point A to point B. I'm gonna have you go from California to Japan in this accelerated type of flight, so you can just move it however fast we decide you can move. And as you move, I'm going to be moving. I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to do. I'm just going to move the map underneath you. And you have to make changes to the plane along its way so you can get to Japan from California, southwest. Now, by doing that, you're going to make little changes as I move, because I'm not going to move all of a sudden. I'm going to move it. I know what I'm going to do before I even do it. I'll start moving in that slow, progressively, this rotation or movement or whatever I do. It'll always be even. And you're going to have to figure out where you put the plane to follow the path to Japan. And by doing that, you will get a picture in your mind of how this happened. Because you will actually have to make the plane make turns with respect to the ground, the map, to actually make up for this tangential velocity differential that you left from that you're going to.
It's just gobbledygook, man. It doesn't matter how many different scenarios you try to draw out. It doesn't work.
It's just basic transforms.
What?
Your linear path over
transforms,
rotating
mathematical
surface.
transforms. So the pilot's aware of these mathematical transforms that he needs to do to make sure he's in sync with the Earth.
Happens.
Oh, it just happens. Okay,
just like amazing. Throwing a ball to someone on a merry-go-round. I know. I know where it's going to end up. I just throw it straight, and I know it'll end up at the guy to the right of me if it's rotating to the left.
You can't honestly believe it. It just happens.
Yeah,
really?
The military has countless manuals depicting this in great detail. New perspective.
Well,
that you will be
they don't have anything about.
If you don't,
military manuals say that the pilot treats the Earth as stationary.
No, it doesn't. Only for certain types of questions.
What?
Only for. I'll say it again. Only
okay,
for.
So you're saying the left plane who comes in here, who flies, doesn't have to worry about this. These corrections are never a thing he has to worry about.
Correct. You never.
How is that possible? How is that possible? He would have to worry about it if the Earth were moving. There would be corrections.
No, you don't, because it's no more.
You just talked about the corrections.
Oh my God, it's deja vu all over again.
Well, you just talk about the corrections, but then you say the pilot doesn't need to worry about it. It's almost unconsciously happening magically, just happening almost unconsciously. Are you kidding me? We're talking about a life and death situation, bro.
These are called course corrections. Every pilot is designed and trained to do course corrections, and they don't know whether it's coming from the Earth moving or there's crosswinds. All their job is to just
they would know
to point V in a straight line.
A pilot would never be put in the air with an expensive machine, not knowing every single possible thing and everything that actually is happening, not things that he almost unconsciously doesn't know what's happening.
Too small
or just happen magically. Doesn't matter about him not worrying about it. He would be given extra things to worry about, not
too
less
small
things
a factor
to worry
about.
You sound so ridiculous, and you know it, dude. This is how I know you know this. You're just playing the game. You're just arguing that side as a game. And you're like, tell the wheels fall off, I'm going to defend it. That's just what I'm going to do. I know it's false, but I'm going to defend it. I don't know how much you get paid to do it or what your ulterior motive is, but That's just your game you're playing, because it doesn't make any sense logically. I'm not gonna accuse you of having no common sense, so I just have to think that you know better. So it's more insulting if you just have no common sense. Come on. I can hear you smiling like more and more.
Well, whatever the reason may be, it does seem like there's a large swath of humans at this point that are they're immersed within a belief system. And those beliefs drive their behaviors, it seems, in a lot of ways. And that's probably why they've done this whole deception in the first place, to disconnect us from nature.
How can they really believe it? How can he believe it if it goes against all common sense? I don't get it.
Well, he's relativistically inclined.
That's funny.
I mean, we could one could ask. I mean, what would even be the reason then? I mean, if like, are you wanting him to see it your way, Dave? Is that what you're saying? Like, you want to, or do you?
No, I'm just having fun. He's an enigma, and you have to appreciate his giving us the best argument they got, and that's just his role, regardless if he believes it or not. It doesn't really matter. It's interesting. It'd be really interesting if someone actually did believe it and just used tactics and obfuscating and repeating things that don't really matter just to make it seem like they have a point. I don't
Yeah,
think he's
Zanick,
that
is this your
stupid.
best?
I don't think he really believes it.
No, I got a
Is this your
whole
best?
nother, I have a whole other arsenal of tactics just waiting for
I know
me.
you do.
Tactics.
I have reinforcements. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just a game. But you know what? And to give you like the biggest benefit of the doubt, I've said before, if flat Earth ever becomes mainstream, in a way we might lose. It's what they wanted all along. You're just doing us a favor of holding us off from the outer ponder psyop invasion shit that they might try with the flat Earth. I don't know. So maybe it's a good thing you're doing what you're doing. I don't know. I really don't know if it'll be better. Maybe you know something we don't.
Well, my
That's the biggest benefit of the doubt I can do.
handlers have told me my handlers have told me not to really engage on at that level with me. So I'll have to wait till later before
I
I get
understand.
my next directives.
Well, you could be telling the truth and it would make perfect sense.
Well, to come and contradict an entire community of people would mean that you would have to be somewhat conflicted about it. To go into a community that you completely don't agree with those people and then like effortlessly try to like
Just obfuscate, like repeat the argument as if you came up with it, even though it's not your argument and it actually goes against your argument, but you're just going to say it. He's like the perfect, like, individual representation of the revelation of the method. Like, I'm going to tell you the truth. Yeah, it'll lose its conservative momentum just by going west, but then of course it's going to make it up just by going left. And I don't care if left is south. Left is enough for me to say left, and left means east somehow in my mind, and I'm just going to say it as if you're an idiot for not understanding that. That's hilarious. Got to give him credit sometimes. He's being so funny, and people don't even realize it.
Is there such a thing on the airplane as like a flight data log, like that you could analyze, like which way the wind's going from and how many times you have to turn to the left or to the every time you make every single like
It's in
adjustment?
the handbook.
And if you looked at that on a flight where he said, yeah, it has to turn left the whole way, and the crosswind was actually coming from the other side, and then you looked at the logs and you
Right.
find out that he's actually not doing any of
Right.
these corrections at all.
There'd be no predictability to it whatsoever as far as winds go, and like just to say that, oh, this is what you'd always do, because even though it doesn't make sense, even if that's what any wind condition wouldn't matter. If you're just like aiming south, does not make you go directly eastward 2 times faster than you started out from when you already lost your conservative momentum that you ended up. that just by going west, you're already losing it. And somehow you're going to gain double that back and just treat the Earth as stationary still somehow magically, unconsciously, he says, intuitively.